Welcome to Cake Playground, where it's all about the fun. In this tutorial, you will be learning how to do a beautiful golden isomalt bow. Gather your equipment. You will need cotton gloves and non-latex gloves. Protect your counter with a thick vinyl mat. You will also need a non-stick silicone mat. We will be using pre-cooked and pre-colored isomalt sticks in gold metallic from Get Sassy. We are using sugar dipper silicone molds from Cake Connection. You will need a large and small leaf. You will need a heat-proof glass measuring cup. For painting, you will need a brush, vodka, gold highlighter, and a small bowl. You will also need a small gum paste tool, an Acco clip, aluminum foil, and a butane torch. Get started by breaking the isomalt sticks into the heat-proof cup. You can break them by hand or on the side of the cup. Melt the isomalt in the microwave starting with a minute. It should look like this. Be sure and let the bubbles settle down a bit before you pour into the silicone mold. When the bubbles have settled down a bit, pour the isomalt into the silicone mold. Notice that I pour here the length of the silicone mold. I don't pour all the way to the end. I use my gum paste tool to spread the isomalt from the center out to the edges. But make sure the edges are completely filled in here. You see that I start at one end and push the hot isomalt from the center out to the edges, and make sure that the isomalt goes completely to the edge, but not over the edge. You can see here the isomalt is starting to cool and thicken, so you will need to work relatively quickly spreading the hot isomalt to the edges of the mold. When the isomalt has cooled slightly but is still flexible, you can shape the bow into a loop. So fold the mold in half, and you want to make sure that the two tips are touching. And then you can hold the silicone mold in place using the Acco clip. You want to keep this mold in motion while the isomalt is cooling down, so that you don't have any problems with the warm isomalt pooling in an area. When the isomalt is completely cool and hard, unclip the Acco clip and peel back the mold. It should easily peel back. You should not have to pull on the isomalt at all. If you do have to pull on it, you've probably unmolded too early and it will become misshapen. To mix the paint for the gold highlights, you will need to mix this gold highlight powder with a small amount of vodka in a bowl. Place a small amount of the gold highlighter into the bowl. You won't need very much. If you need more, you can mix more later. And be sure and cap this thing because it's easy to spill. And then we are going to put a very small amount of vodka. I measure into the cap so I don't put too much. And don't pour the vodka directly onto the highlighter. Pour it onto the side. Use your brush to pull the powder into the vodka to mix to the consistency of medium thick paint. When the gold paint is the consistency of medium thick paint, take and paint the gold highlights onto the ridges of this bow. Notice I'm using the side of my brush. I'm not painting into the wells between the veins. I'm painting only on the top. So don't use the tip of the brush, use the side of the brush. See here, you don't want to paint into these wells between the ridges. But you do want to be sure and paint the edges of the bow. It gives it a better look. And you don't have to be too meticulous painting into the tips because those will actually be hidden when you construct this bow. See, doesn't that gold really make this thing pop? Doesn't it look like that metallic ribbon that you put on Christmas gifts? So continue this process and make 6 large loops and 1 small. Once you have made all the bow loops, assemble them together on the silicone mat along with the aluminum ring of foil. Pour some melted isomalt into the center of the foil and place your bow loop into the melted isomalt. You're going to have to use the aluminum foil ring and your hands to shape and hold the loops together until the isomalt that's melted has cooled. So kind of use the aluminum foil as a third hand to hold these loops together and shape until it hardens up. When it's hardened up a little bit, pour a little bit more melted isomalt into the center of the bow and take the small bow and place it into the center. When the isomalt has cooled, you can release the bow from the silicone mat and use this beautiful bow decoration in a variety of applications. Thank you everyone for joining me in this tutorial. Please come to Cake Playground to find more tutorials, equipment list, and written instructions. Cake Playground, it's all about the fun.